What this week has shown, beyond any doubt, is that Democrats would rather talk about partisan legislation they won't pass than on actually passing legislation we know would create jobs. 2.5 years after the president signed his first stimulus, there are 1.7 million fewer jobs in this country. And now he wants to do it again. Why? Because Democrats think it makes good politics. This week it was revealed that there wasn't enough support within the Democratic ranks to pass the president's so-called jobs bill. It was simply too partisan. So yesterday, instead of making it less partisan, they made it more so. By adding a tax on small business owners, they made it even less attractive to job creators rather than working with Republicans on legislation that would actually help create jobs. I mean, what's the goal here? If the goal is to create jobs, then why are we even talking about tax hikes? The president himself has said that raising taxes is the last thing you want to do in a weak economy. That's the president of the United States. Even the White House predicts that unemployment rate will be high when this tax would kick in. So the real goal here for the Democrats, as far as I can tell, is entirely political. By arguing for a permanent tax hike to pay for a temporary stimulus, they are essentially admitting they're not particularly interested in creating jobs, because proposing a partisan tax hike 13 months before an election won't create one single job, not one. So I would suggest that our friends on the other side put away the playbook and work with us instead. As I've said repeatedly, Republicans are ready to act right away with Democrats on bipartisan, job-creating legislation, on the 3 trade bills, for instance, on regulatory reform, increasing American energy production, and tax reform. All those things would help the economy, and all could be strongly bipartisan. Yet Democratic leaders don't seem to be interested in working together on these kinds of things. 2 days ago, for example, I offered the president his request to vote on his second stimulus. Our Democratic friends blocked the vote. Instead of working across the aisle with Republicans on solutions that would help put people back to work, Democrats have fallen back to tired talking points, the same stale rhetoric we've heard literally for years. And with 14 million Americans out of work, this is completely and totally unacceptable. We're wasting valuable time. Despite the president assuring Americans that nobody is talking about raising taxes right now, and that a down economy was a horrible time to raise taxes, again, this is what the president said, the new Democratic tax hike would take effect in a little over a year, when CBO tells us the unemployment rate will still be well over 8%. It's no wonder that the economy is stagnant. Businesses aren't hiring, and unemployment is at 9%. How can anyone be expected to make plans when the next gotcha tax hike to pay for this president's spending binge is always lurking right around the corner? The president has said it's wrong to raise taxes in this weak economic environment. If he meant what he said, surely he'll join me in opposing this unwise tax hike Senate Democrats have proposed. Republicans, along with some Democrats, have pro-growth solutions to help solve this crisis. But we will not stand for a permanent tax hike for a temporary stimulus that is largely a rehash of the same stimulus ideas the administration has already tried. This bill is the same wasteful spending, the same burdensome union giveaways, and the same temporary tax policy that has failed the American people in the last 2 years. This economy can grow and create jobs when Washington reduces spending and regulations, and by simplifying our incredibly complex tax system. This is what's needed to literally unleash the private sector. It's time Democrats move beyond the political rhetoric and for the president to stop campaigning. It's time for Democrats to reach across the aisle on bipartisan legislation that can actually pass.